All right, everybody, it's our Clow here, and as always, I have a tremendous amount of information that I am so very excited to be able to share with y'all today, and really I want to be able to just jump right into things because, granted, the nature of what we're seeing unfold in front of us, it really does feel like we are entering a home stretch, approaching the end of how things have been and are nearing the transition into what they are to be if everything remains the same. And so, if this is your first time at this channel, somehow the shadow ban was something you were able to navigate and find your way here, welcome. I highly recommend that you look into my other videos, as I will be alluding to throughout today. They carry a significant amount of information that is still relevant into what we are seeing and very likely beyond. For those of you returning, thank you so much for all of the support, all of the energy, nothing but love and light to all of you for giving your time and lending your understanding towards these videos. So with that being said, let's jump right in here because I want to start with the fact that my last video was released on March 3rd of this year, and the Trump assassination took place on July 13th of this year. So as you can see on the left side of your screen, that is 133 days, and on the right side of your screen you can see that simple coding for 133, and in that coding you do have reference to Ride, Donnie, Ride. And I want to harken back to the video that I put out several years ago, in which this is actually a riff on Ride, Johnny, Ride, which was one of the singles on the Misfits' We Are 138 Bullet EP. And Ride, Donnie, Ride is a t-shirt that somebody had made, and it had an image of Donald Trump being shot a la JFK, much like on that EP cover there is an image of JFK being shot. I also want you to take note of the All Eyes on Me coding, again reference to Tupac, another individual who was shot, and all of the work that I've done on that as well. I highly encourage you to take a look at all of that. You can also see the reference to Window Seat, a reference to Erykah Badu's music video, again, where she is shot a la JFK. And at this point, these connections are in a place that I would call irrefutable. They are far past coincidental, and the interwoven nature of them is, again, beyond, I feel, being able to simply disregard. You can see on the right side of your screen as well, in this 133 coding, the reference to the number 171. Again, that is the Pez theory number, and in my Pez theory, which we will be talking a little bit about today, we did have discussion of 6/11, Donald Trump assassinations, all of those sorts of things. And so again, on the right side there are many more connections, including the number 45, the president that Trump was, on and on and on here. Okay, this is a hoax, government, salve coagula, fundamental pieces. Again, I want to draw your attention to Peace by Vengeance. Again, this ludicrous concept that people who identify with the left side of the political spectrum are adamantly advocating for, and that things would have been so much better had he been shot, and the negligence of the short-sighted and myopic view that represents is frankly beyond me. References to the law, Thelema, again, book of the law written out, our 113 number, and all of the ways that can be interpreted. But again, this is all at the onset here. And I want to take a moment as well, because the time in between these videos seems to be ever crucial. And the time between my previous video and today is 154 days. And so again, right side of your screen, we do have references to the law of Thelema, Trump's time, 216, as in Butler, Pennsylvania, B and P, the second and 16th letters. Again, that 216 is the same number that we get if we multiply 6 times 6 times 6. This is something I've talked about ad nauseum for those of you that have followed this channel. But again, these references over here to ritual sacrifice, thy will be done, restoration, World Heart Day. We'll see more references to September 29th throughout today's video. We're still waiting for a pretty significant event to land on that date. But so again, I'll hearken one more time to that previous video that I did, because it is going to be coming up throughout today. And in that video, I did have to put it together very quickly, and on the right side of your screen now you can see a excerpt from the coding in that video, and there was a lot of emphasis on 137, and there was a wonderful comment that somebody had in there. But again, all of the attention to that number and looking at that as one of the potential ways to write July 13th, I do think is very crucial, much like my emphasis on November 3rd, right? The opposite way of writing that, as 3/11 gave us the date of when the World Health Organization declared, right, a fucking emergency or whatever that was. Again, we've got the articles in the back related to COVID. So, tremendous amount of information for y'all out of the gate. Yes, I know. And again, that date in between my last video and the Trump assassination attempt can also be written out as 4 months, 11 days. And again, how we can see that coding on the right side of your screen in relation to Chelsea Wolfe, and a lot of very pertinent information on that side. That number 114 is going to be pivotal today as well. But I want you, again, to just have access to seeing all of these connections. And this is right the outset of our work here today. And I want to take a moment and really just talk about the bizarre nature of that attempt on him, right? You can't see, but I'm doing air quotes. And the ability to discern reality at this point is highly obscured, and we're beyond up is down and down is up. Up now seems to be left and to the right. Because the rhyme and reason from any way to kind of orient seems to be rapidly disappearing from all around us. And I really want to just use this as a moment to indicate how much like the 9/11 story, in which all of the respective agencies, branches, response teams, individuals, etc., just so happen to be involved with something else, or not present, or unresponsive, or whatever. We are getting the same exact sort of narrative with this assassination attempt, because again, the logic is simply not there for what a straight shot that shooter would have had. And again, it just bothers me to no end that they're able to manipulate and exploit the fear of the population as well as their naivety, which I don't want to hold against anybody. However, it does seem to be increasingly problematic in the outright confrontational manner that these ignorant people are starting to act throughout our society. I want to talk as well, just to highlight it, how this seems to me to be really the sole purpose in a lot of ways for the Mandela effect. Again, this idea of global gaslighting, and that people cannot be trusted to remember things as they otherwise do or would. You can see on the right side of your screen the coding for the Mandela effect, and sharing coding with the Misfits and Nestle Nescafe. Remember, that was the commercial that played right after Walter Cronkite had announced the assassination of JFK, that had the pendulum swinging from side to side as if to hypnotize. And we're seeing more of this distortion with regards to Kamala Harris, who is going to be a big talking point in today's video, because again, they are in essence telling people not to believe what they remember of her being designated the quote-unquote border czar, things of that nature. And again, the weak and feeble nature of most people's minds makes this exceptionally concerning, because they're clearly able to get away with this much longer than is acceptable. But so I want to reference back to a couple of older videos here, because I'm going to be referencing them a lot today, but I want you to see how these connections are things that we have been attuned to for many years. I'll go ahead and open this up. I wanted you to be able to see the full title of that and the connections to David Blaine and Donald Trump, who again do share coding, which I will go ahead and pull up on the right side of your screen here. And so there you have that, the reference to the Path of None. Again, that is the Death Tarot card. And I'm going to go through here just so you can, again, pause where needed and take a look at these codings, right? David Blaine's full name, Donald J. Trump, again, sharing that number, as well as 13-8. Again, we are 138. 138 is also a Pez theory number. For those of you who follow this channel, again, you can see sharing the coding with Donald Trump, on and on and on. But so the reason that I am belaboring these points today is because I want to make it exceptionally clear that none of this is happening by coincidence. I want you to see that I had this video that was banned, and you can see this is from MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch, and Trump's hand is being raised in victory. He's covered in blood, right? Again, I've talked about this at length, but they banned that video. And you can see on the same day I had put out the same bits, right? This was part 2. And again, the beware the T from that video, all the things we talked about. And then if we go to the very next video that I put out, it was the Pez theory. And this was everything talking about NASA's origins, them being a keystone to the overturning of the current world, and me talking about why YouTube banned my 6/11 video. You can see it there. Pez theory is still up. And I highlight that today because if you go over here to CNN, who said that he had fallen down or was startled by a loud noise again, all of this global gaslighting, you can see on their timeline of what happened, 6/11/33. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Is what they say is the pause from Trump as the shots ring out. And then again, a fraction of a second later, touches the right side of his face. And this is all taking place in that 6/11 bracket. And 6/11, a number that we have been very dedicated to showing you a lot of connections to. And I'm going to show you yet another one here today. And again, when we look back to the video that I had encouraged you all to check out from 8 years ago now, in a leap year, did very explicitly reference the day of July 13th in a leap year, with the coding of Donald Trump being blackened, as well as first-degree murder, which, again, it's hard to say, but is most certainly the narrative that seems to be unfolding with that. But with those things being said, I want to play for you an excerpt from what I feel is one of the most telling videos that I've put on this channel. And I highly recommend all of you who have not had a chance to go back and watch this. But I'm going to go ahead and play this out for you for a moment. And here we go. Was this World in 2015 cover from the Economist, and there was a lot of discussion, of course, on all of the figures here. This was the first cover that really piqued people's interest in deciphering how it could be a blueprint for what lies ahead. But you'll notice that Donald Trump was missing from this cover, and a lot of people found that suspicious because, again, he was very prevalent in the world at that time. But you do notice that David Blaine is present right behind Vladimir Putin, who we would expect Trump to be by. And notice that his head is covering the letters AP, and I'll take you one further, because notice this image from the actual Economist website. They've clipped David Blaine out completely, and it gives you a very clear view of those letters that his head later obscures, the A and the P, the first and 16th letter of the alphabet, that 116. Of course, we could look at the 116th Congress that just came in as a hail to the year 2019 in this reference, or any other number of ways of breaking down that really impactful number. But so, when I was saying that Blaine was an inversion of... And I want to go ahead and pause there, because this clip right here that I do include in the video is from AP, who was doing the coverage of Blaine's Buried Alive event. And the connections that I've had of these two being representative of each other is very telling in many ways. Again, this inversion, this mirror through Blaine's dive of death, all of the connections with the bullet catch that Blaine committed. But I want I want you to bear in mind the significance of AP here, because that is the agency of the photographer that took this now iconic photo, Evan Vucci, however you pronounce his name. But so Trump was in essence buried alive by Secret Service members that day as they pushed him to the ground, and then he reemerges cheering to fight, fight, fight. Right? And that he wants his shoes. We'll look at that coding a little later on. But again here, the fact that this is AP, those first and 16th letters can be mirrored for 6/11. Again, just like the time he was shot. And those letters, AP mirrored, are the abbreviated letters PA, just like the state of Pennsylvania in which this event took place. So the connections there are absolutely stunning to me, and I'll scroll down just so that you can see. We will talk about that photographer later on. And if y'all are curious, that fight, 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 because that most certainly has become very iconic as well, does have the simple value of 150. Everything from Trump train to monarch slaves to foreheads to be sealed is included underneath that coding. Again, tying in as well with our Chelsea Wolfe research, the Black Trump. You can obviously see how that would connect in. And we really could keep going on and on. But with those pieces being on the table, I feel like that is sufficient enough to return to the content for today. And this simple value of 274. The same as leave the world behind, obey NASA. This was, again, from my last video. I highly encourage you to go take a look at that. But the references here to 2024, all eyes on the White House. Again, thinking about all eyes on me. The references to death, transition, untimely death at that. But I want you to take notice of some of these numbers over here. And I'll pull up on the right side of your screen the 173. And you can see here the ideas of Third World War, Agenda 21, prophetic sight, kind of on and on. And again, this does connect to that last video as well, with the diamond and crystal coating, those being the representative birthstones of a day that we were looking into. I want you to also take note of this number 242. And again, on the right side of your screen here, the references to Temple of Understanding, the Oracle concerning Babylon, Fall of the United States, and the Brotherhood of Saturn. Again, this coding goes on, and for the sake of time, I am only indicating or highlighting a handful of these pieces. But again, the number 239 written out, the same as the I could shoot somebody coding. USA history repeats, conqueror of nations, wolf in sheep's clothing, on and on. There are a lot of references to Elon Musk that came up in this coding, and so no surprise if something with him very major way emerges soon. I want you to notice as well on the left side of your screen as we move to the next bit here, the simple value of 288. And you can see here these references to the opening of the 7 seals, Operation Swords of Iron, what a difference a president makes, the phrase, the future is predetermined, and the number 233. And again, I will pull that up for you on the right side of your screen. You will see right off the bat, it does share coding with enthroned Washington. Again, this is the statue of George Washington in very Roman attire, handing a sword to the people to protect the nation which was built. You can also see references to President Abraham Lincoln and John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 2 of the 4 presidents that were assassinated. The reference to the triumphal entry is very important as well. And you can also see the Judgment Day of America coming up in this. But in this coding on the left side of your screen, the name Chuck is the next big one. That's that simple 288 over here. And that really stood out to me because, again, the serendipitous way in which I came across Seattle's Yellow Brick Road and Emerald City Yellow Brick Road is a whole other story. But in that, the name Chuck is the next big one. So when I looked at the coding for the name Chuck written out, we have that symbol of 112, which is the same as Kamala Harris. Now, what the fuck? And I kept this in here because I thought that it was very interesting that my computer is unfamiliar with her name and insists that it is misspelled. But I want you to notice here the reference not only to her, the president of China, the word victory and connection both coming up, as well as next phase, October 1, which I believe is either a reference to Border Czar or Queen Kamala. One of those has a simple value of 110. And again here, this reference to 8/11, which we could obviously look at as the date, August 11th. That could also be November 8th. But more to the point, it's representative of Kamala Harris's initials, the 11th and 8th letters. You also see the coding here for Deep Throat. And again, I've done a tremendous amount of research and content around the adult entertainment industry and the adult film industry, and how Deep Throat was the first major pornographic film put forward. And again, we've talked very extensively here about Crowley and many other occult writers' belief that the true catalyst to overturning the world is by uprooting the way in which sexuality and gender are viewed. And unfortunately, we are well down that road at this point. But I referenced Deep Throat as well because I do think that could also be a reference to Kamala Harris, because I think it's pretty concrete that she didn't earn her position in the political world. She was given it, likely for sexual favors. And I think it's also a reference to Blaine's bullet catch. But I want you to see here that we have in this name Chuck coding 4-6, which could also be 6-4, and 3-3. You also see reference to your name. But so in thinking about that 4-6, 6-4, right, 3-3, obviously a mirror. I'm talking a lot about the mirror that is represented by the connections to David Blaine and Donald Trump. Again, their inversion of each other. I think it's really fascinating that David Blaine just so happened to pop out not too long before this assassination attempt. I want to show you over here that he did this bizarre promo with Eminem, Marshall Mathers. We could look at his name, right? The 44. And this was released on May 29th. All right, it's the official channel for Eminem sponsoring what the fuck ever. So this is not an arbitrary date. And I'm going to talk about this, but do note that between that being released on 5/29 to the assassination attempt day is 46 days or 6 weeks, 4 days. 4-6-6-4. All right? It's 1 month, 15 days. 115. I'll pull up on the right side of the screen quickly here because we are going to see a lot of 115 today. So you can see that being connected to Blaine's most recent full-on special, The Magic Way, All the Same as a New World, It's All a Joke, Law and Order, okay, Emerald City, again looking back to this yellow brick road, coding, blood work, on and on. The no symbol is of exceptional value and importance as well. 18.5, in case you're wondering, 185 is the same as Donald John Trump, written all the way out, the simple value. But so, let's take a look here because the U.S. presidential election this year is going to be on November 5th, and that's going to be 116 days after the Trump assassination on July 13th this year. So obviously 116, a mirror of the time 6/11 that the shooting took place. So again, all of this so far beyond coincidence. Okay. Let's pull up another 116 for you so you can see a little more of this. But so, with those pieces in place, let's also note that we could look at that 115 number as a relation to October 15th this year, which will be the 289th day with 77 remaining. And again, I highlight that because of the massive significance of Book 77 from Crowley, Law of the Strong. But one more piece for all of you is the actual release of that Houdini song back here is 5/31 of this year, and the time between that and the assassination attempt was 44 days. 44, of course, a death number. We do see the double M here, 44. We could also look at this time and look at this mirrored, so 13, the death card. If we add 1 and 3, it is 4, which would give us another 44 there. And I want to harken this back all the way to the beginning of the video and the significance of the number 4, because that does come written in this coding for 133, the same as Ride, Donnie Ride. I will also include for you some of the more detailed exploration of the number 4 that we have discussed at extensive length in the past. And so you can also see that span of time referencing 1 month, 14 days. And again, that can be another mirror of this 411 that we saw at the beginning of our video as well. And that symbol of 114 is coming up in today's video. You can see on the right side of your screen, I went ahead and pulled it up. And the reference to Penn State, home of a very infamous child sex abuse scandal, does share that 114 coding. 19th also comes up in that 114. Again, the 19 weeks referenced at the beginning of this video. But the 114 for today's video comes up in relation to eating glass, which is what David Blaine does in this video. You can see he drinks a glass of wine and then proceeds to eat the glass. I don't want to play this because I don't want to get a strike on this. But so, again, beyond any sort of coincidental lens, you can see written out here, Trump card, New World, 2-3. Remember, the 23rd chapter in Crowley's Book of Lies is Skidoo. And on the right side of your screen here, again, more fascinating information for you to be able to understand this even further. The connections to that word and sacrifice are also well in play. Okay, so there's a lot more connections that I've done, a lot of talking around this, but let's keep moving here. So as I noted a moment ago, the time that is on David Blaine's phone in this video is 4:31, which if we look at that coding, we do see written out September 11th. And wouldn't you know it, I believe today I'm seeing that they are bringing September 11 up again in the fact of, switching something around what's happening and the narrative around it. All right. And again, 119 written out, obviously a mirrored 9/11. If we go ahead and pull up that 119 coding for you, you can see here very clearly, all-seeing eye, slot machine. Again, the concepts that I talked about this in the past, the reference to order of death and tarot cards, and the video that I was wanting to highlight for you with the Economist tarot plot, the bullet catch, the connections between David Blaine and Donald Trump. Again, this goes on and on. The references to the planet Saturn, Caduceus Vineyards from my Maynard video, and the talks about Arizona Bay, what that really means. We'll pull it up here because it comes up, Revelation 18. We can do RE for 185. And you can see on the right side of your screen here a very detailed lens, because that has been such a big number for us over the years. But as I indicated earlier, Trump's full name written out, the reference to the lawnmower man. I'm not going to have time to get back into that one today. But the list here of these central pieces, again, this is the episode of The Simpsons, Lisa the Iconoclast, that the Pez theory revolves around. And I really could go on and on here, but suffice it to say, this idea of the Truman Show, global resets, and so forth seem to be very deeply interwoven in this coding that we've been so connected to for so very long on this channel. And I want you to see as well here the Age of Sorrows, because that feels like something that we are heading into, this sacrificing of the world that we have and the insistence that it will somehow be better through some sort of fascistic or communistic bullshit collectivist lens. that all of these people become overly emotional and defending, but have literally no idea of what it all entails. But I want you to see here as well, on the left side of your screen, Revelation 18 is titled Lament Over Fallen Babylon, which has a simple value of 246, which happens to be the same as Donald Trump buried alive, as well as the divine understanding, the number 888, which I am going to bring back up on the right side of your screen here, because the coding that is overlapped there, 148 has an English value of 888. And again, the connections between Blaine, Trump, this is Lana Del Rey, Elizabeth Grant, all of the things over here, very, very heavily connected. And of course, you can see here I have taking this number 246, mirroring and adding it also gives us that 888. I want you to also notice in this video here with Eminem and Blaine, the phone is at 47%. Again, the connection here is that Trump would stand to be the 47th president. We could bring up the simple coding of 47 because it is very important. You can see it as the value for Pez. You can also see that it connects with these ideas of obey, which connects to my previous video, the Obey NASA, that came from those children's shirts that they were wearing, and our breakdown of that. Okay, is a very important number. Nemo, again, NASA's underwater research facility off the coast of Florida. You can have a whole video on that if you're curious. But if we look at the coding for 47%, not only do we get our 23 here and our 230 value, again dropping the 0, but you can see the reference to Butler, Pennsylvania, which is, again, where the assassination attempt took place. This is beyond being able to write off as a coincidence. I included Knoxville, Tennessee, because the idea of Knox is exceptionally important in understanding the occult pieces here. And so again, I'm just going to bring these up so that you can keep all of this together and in mind. And again, Knox having that simple value of 64. And I'm glad that I brought this up because I had not typed that in initially when I was putting this video together. But again, this hearkening back to what was written out here in the coding for Kamala Harris, 4664. So of course, wanting to look at those values and seeing what comes up here. And so again, tremendous amount that we could say. But I want you to take a look here, because again, the name Chuck is the next big one, and that coding for the name Chuck sharing the value of Kamala Harris. And then so us looking at her entire name written out gives us that 152 and this reference to Black Swan event. And there's a lot of authors out there right now talking about increasing frequency of quote-unquote Black Swan events. Again, Del Rey's last or second to last track, I believe, on her Honeymoon album, which is the big one that we talked about, is Black Swan. This reference to 36 and the 36 triangular number being 666, and talking about that being a very high rank. Again, 36 we could also look as 3 sixes. But I want you to see written out here as well, August 11. Again, the reference potentially to Harris's initials. Reference as well to number of these written out. One of them being the number 79, which is the same simple coding as name Chuck, which is the same as murder, sword, dualism, chaos magic, and cyber god. It's connecting back to the Lawnmower Man videos. And again, in that film, it is a phone call that essentially sparks the end of the world from artificial intelligence bridging over. And the depth that I'm inclined to go into there right now is a lot, but I'm going to hold off and encourage you to go back and watch that video. Again, reference to V for Vendetta. No coincidence, I feel, that the presidential election this year is November 5th. Remember the 5th of November. Okay, Guy Fawkes Day. That will also come up in coding later on here. And you can see here all of this, again, written out. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump dead. Again, all of this fucking shit. It is absurd. All-Seeing Eye. Truman Show coming back up here. A lot of references to different days in September. The 8th and the 5th coming up. September 7th is our one that we really have our eyes on right now. And that number 316 is written out as well. If we were to take a look at that, this is a very big card here. And you can see Donald J. Trump, enough is enough. Remember, in that quote-unquote Illuminati tarot deck, Trump I think I'm about to be cut off here. So look at President Kamala Harris, the simple value of 222. I'm going to scroll down. This is the rest of the content that I can't cover. Thank you, and please be well.